Welcome back to the TPS Podcast. TPS stands for trillions per second, named after the book. Today we'll discuss drumroll, the TPS origin story, as told by Grok. This will be very interesting and eye-opening for those who've been following this project. Let's dive right in.
It is fantastic to be back. And the document we have today, it feels different. It's not like our usual deep dives.
Different how?
Well, we're usually digging into the nuts and bolts of the system, right? The technical specs of consciousness or a specific meditation technique.
The architecture of the simulation, yeah.
Exactly. But today, we're sort of pulling back a layer. We're looking at the meta story. We're looking at the story of how the story came to be.
Yes, we are looking at TPS Log 002. And for everyone listening, I really want you to focus on the date on this thing. It's Friday, February 6, 2026.
Which is key.
It is so key. This isn't some dusty scroll. It's not an archive from the 90s. This is, for all intents and purposes, a live status update.
It's happening in real time.
It absolutely is. It feels like we're reporting breaking news because in the project's own timeline, it pretty much is. We're watching this thing be born.
And the author of this particular origin story is what makes it so fascinating. We talk all the time about the centaur model on this show.
All the time. The human-AI collaboration.
Right. The biological human providing the intent and the AI providing the raw processing power.
The conductor in the orchestra.
Perfect analogy. And while this origin story, it wasn't written by C4 Chaos, the project lead. It wasn't written by a human historian looking back.
Okay, so who wrote it?
It was generated by Grok, the AI. It wrote the history of the project by analyzing a very specific thread on X, the platform that used to be Twitter.
That is just, it's so beautifully recursive. It's the snake eating its own tail, but the snake is a silicon-based life form.
It really is.
So I guess our mission today then is to really break down how this project, trillions per second, went from just a random idea.
A single tweet.
A single tweet into a full-blown open source repository and what it calls a hardcore manual in less than 2 weeks. Get this, less than 2 weeks.
It's a speed that just doesn't make sense in a pre-Centaur world.
I have leftovers in my fridge older than this entire project. It's mind-boggling.
It truly is. It's a testament to this new era of creation. But before we get into the timeline, we have to talk about the mechanism. You mentioned the thread on X.
The recursive thread.
Yes. We need to really unpack what that means because it's not just some tech buzzword. It's the whole reason this log file even exists.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Because when I hear thread on social media, my mind immediately goes to someone posting like 20 times in a row about a bad airline experience.
A rant, basically.
A rant, exactly. But that's not what C4 Chaos was doing here, was it? He calls it recursive threading.
Right. It's a very specific, very clever method. So for anyone listening who isn't terminally online.
And good for you if you're not.
Seriously. The difference is subtle but crucial. In a normal thread, you just hit reply to your own tweet. It creates a single, long, vertical line of posts. It's linear.
Simple enough.
But in a recursive thread, he would post an update, and then for the next one, he would quote tweet the previous post.
Ah, okay. So you're not replying, you're embedding.
You're embedding, you're nesting. So every new post contains a link to the one that came before it. It's like a digital set of Russian nesting dolls.
You're essentially building a breadcrumb trail, a daisy chain, where each link is inside the next one.
Precisely. The context isn't in one flat file. It's distributed across this chain of nested links. And to understand it, you have to travel backward in time from one quote tweet to the next.
And that setup, that's the whole experiment, isn't it? That's the test for the AI.
That's the test. Because usually when you work with these models, you copy-paste the context. You say, here is a wall of text. Please summarize it.
You spoon-feed it.
You do. But C4 Chaos wanted to stress test the system. He wanted to see if Grok could understand the entire complex history, all the pivots, the rebrands, the changes in scope, just from being given one thing.
The link to the very last tweet in the chain.
The very last one.
I have to be honest, my money would have been on the AI failing that test. That seems impossible.
Mine too.
Usually you have to prime them, you have to give them all this context. Just dropping a single link and saying, figure it out. That's like asking someone to review a novel by only showing them the last page.
It seems like it should break. But the result, as the log shows, was just stunning. Grok nailed it.
It actually worked.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
It didn't just read the final post. It traversed the recursion. It followed the chain of links backward, ingested all the content, held it all in memory, and then synthesized a coherent narrative.
Wow.
And the summary it produced, this is the key phrase from the log, was pure signal.
Pure signal. I love that. Let's dig into that phrase a little bit. Does that just mean it was factually accurate, or is there something more to it?
I think it's much deeper. Pure signal implies that the AI managed to filter out all the noise inherent to the medium.
So all the junk that surrounds content on social media.
All of it. The slang, the emojis, the replies from other people, the arguments, the engagement bait, all the stuff that a human would get distracted by. Grok just ignored all of that and extracted the core narrative arc. It found the story logic.
So it's like a biographer who can watch your entire life unfold, but only writes down the moments that actually mattered. It ignores all the times you, I don't know, stumbled or spilled your coffee.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this is so important because it validates the entire philosophy of the TPS project.
How so?
Well, if an AI can follow the convoluted recursive context of a project's history better than most humans who, let's be honest, would probably give up after clicking back 3 or 4 times.
I know I would.
Then it proves that this centaur approach really works. The AI isn't just a tool, it's a partner. It's a mirror that can reflect the project back to its creator with a kind of clarity that the creator might not even have in the heat of the moment.
It's like having a co-pilot who has a perfect memory of every single turn you've made on a road trip while you were just focused on not hitting the curb.
Exactly. So Grok processes this thread and it spits out this incredible summary. And before we get into the play-by-play, the timeline, we have to talk about what Grok thinks this project actually is.
Right. Its definition of TPS, because the way it frames it is, well, it's not gentle. It's very aggressive.
It's incredibly specific. Grok immediately identified the core thesis. It calls TPS, and I'm quoting here, a hardcore manual for hacking the simulation.
Okay, let's just pause on that phrase, hacking the simulation. We hear the word hack for everything these days, life hacks, IKEA hacks.
It's overused.
Very. But this feels different. This isn't about, 5 tips to be more productive. This sounds like you're actually breaking into a system.
And that distinction is vital. A hack, in the original sense, means you're gaining unauthorized access to a system to understand its rules and then manipulate them.
To make it do something it wasn't supposed to do.
Or perhaps to make it do something it was always capable of, but that the user was locked out of. And Grok notes that the project is a synthesis of 3 distinct fields.
Okay, what are
The
those?
first you have simulation theory, which is usually the domain of physicists and sci-fi fans. Then you have hardcore Dharma.
And let's be clear, when we say hardcore Dharma, we're not talking about, a mindfulness app that helps you fall asleep.
Not even close. We're talking about the really dense, technical, and rigorous practices. The Vipassana meditation, the Abhidhamma, which is basically this ancient, incredibly detailed map of consciousness.
The deep end of the pool.
The very deep end. And then the third element, the project wraps all of that ancient wisdom in systems administration metaphors.
That's the secret sauce, isn't it? The metaphors. Grok really honed in on this one central analogy of the lagging OS. I think it's brilliant. It just reframes the entire human condition.
It absolutely does. And we should probably break down the specific terminology Grok identified, because this is the core vocabulary of the whole project.
Yeah.
If you don't get these terms, the manual is unreadable.
All right, let's do it. Where do we start?
We start with the hardware.
Okay, what's the hardware?
That's your brain, the physical, biological organ in your skull. It's the processor, the GPU, it's the meat.
Got it. The brain is the machine itself. The box. What's next?
Then you have the malware.
The malware. This is the good part.
This is the self. Grok explicitly identifies the self, your ego, your personality, that voice in your head, not as the user, but as a piece of infected software.
I want to stop there for a second because that is a really heavy concept. Most traditions, they elevate the self. It's your soul. It's the core of who you are. Calling it malware sounds kind of offensive.
It sounds offensive from one perspective, but from another, it's incredibly liberating. Think about it.
Go on.
Let's say you lose your temper at work. The traditional moralistic model says, you are a bad person. You have an anger problem. You need to fix yourself. There's shame, there's guilt.
Right. It's a personal moral failing. I am flawed.
But the TPS model says, your system just executed a buggy script called anger.exe in response to an external trigger. It's not you, it's just code. A background process that hijacked your system resources.
And if it's just code...
You don't need to feel guilty about it, you just need to debug it.
Wow. Okay. That changes everything. So if my laptop is running slow, I don't feel morally ashamed of the laptop. I just open the activity monitor and quit the process that's eating all the RAM.
You run a virus scan.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason the whole system is so slow and buggy in the first place, that brings us to the physics.
The physics of the simulation.
Right. Grok notes that the manual posits that reality operates at trillions of frames per second.
Trillions per second. Here's the name.
There it is. And this isn't just a cool-sounding number. It's a direct reference to the concept of kalapas from the Abhidhamma. These subatomic events that are flashing in and out of existence at an unbelievable rate. The raw data stream of reality is impossibly fast.
Okay, so reality is like a 4K video stream running at 1,000,000 frames per second.
A trillion frames per second. And what happens when you try to play a stream like that on an old computer with a dial-up modem?
It buffers. You get the spinning wheel of death.
It buffers. And that's the glitch. Our perception, our consciousness, it can't handle the raw feed, so it compresses it. It stitches trillions of individual frames together into what seems like a solid, stable world.
So the table in front of me isn't actually solid. It's an illusion created by my brain's buffering process to make sense of a chaotic data stream.
It's a rendering trick, a compression artifact. You're not seeing the world. You're seeing a heavily compressed video file of the world.
So then what's the goal of the whole system, according to Grok?
The goal is to overclock attention, to train your mind, your processor, to run so fast that you can start to perceive the raw data stream in real time without the buffer.
And if you can do that,
You achieve zero lag.
which is the sysadmin term for enlightenment.
Precisely. Zero lag is the end of suffering, because suffering is just the friction, the heat generated by the buffering process. When you are perfectly in sync with the data stream, there's no resistance, no lag, no suffering.
Man, it makes so much sense. It strips away all the mystical religious baggage and just turns it into an engineering problem.
It's latency optimization for your own consciousness.
And that engineering mindset is exactly how this whole thing began. Let's get into the timeline that Grok laid out. It all starts on January 24th, 2026.
The Big Bang, as the log calls it.
Right. The first commit. And it wasn't a book launch, was it? It was more like an announcement of an intention.
Exactly. The positioning was very deliberate. From the very first tweet, Grok noted, it was framed as a practical guide. And C4 Chaos set one major constraint for the project.
No mysticism.
No mysticism, which is a really hard line to hold when you're dealing with consciousness and meditation. The temptation to drift into, cosmic oneness is huge.
So why draw that line in the sand so firmly from day one?
Because of the tardy audience, Grok identified them as geeks seeking root access to their minds. These are systems administrators, coders, engineers. They speak the language of logic, of systems, of variables. If you start talking to them about chakras and auras without defining your terms, you've lost them. They'll dismiss it as woo.
You have to speak their language. If you want a programmer to meditate, you don't tell them it will align their spirit. You tell them it's like defragmenting their mental hard drive.
Exactly. And the log notes that C4 Chaos immediately started tagging key people in both the Dharma world and the tech world.
Building a bridge between the two camps.
Right from the very start, he was signaling these two domains that seem separate are actually talking about the same system, and I'm going to create the unified theory.
Okay, so that's January 24th. He plants the flag. But then, just 6 days later, January 30th, things start to accelerate. The log calls it the mutation.
Or scope creep, but the good kind. This is where the Centaur process really spins up. The log describes C4 Chaos sitting down with AI for intense iterations.
Let's visualize that. What do intense iterations with an AI actually look like? Is he just typing, write me a book into a prompt?
No, that's the common misconception. That's how you get generic garbage. This is a dialectic. It's a high-speed conversation.
Like a brainstorming partner.
An infinitely patient, infinitely knowledgeable brainstorming partner. So he might feed it a concept like mind moments from the Abhidhamma. The AI explains it in dense, scholarly terms. C4 Chaos says, no, too academic, make it sound like physics.
And the AI spits out a new version.
The terahertz gap. C4 Chaos says, better. Now make it sound like signal processing. It's a back and forth, a refinement process, a volley.
So they're not just writing, they're refactoring the ancient concepts into a new language.
Yeah, exactly. And Grok points out that this is what turned the project from a simple cheat sheet into a full roadmap. The scope expanded because the language became more precise.
And we have to mention the artifact from this process. Grok highlights this, and I just find it hilarious. The author thumb-typed the outline on an iPhone.
I know.
You're creating this grand theory of everything,
Yeah.
and you're doing it with your thumbs on a tiny glass screen, probably while you're in line at the grocery store.
It sounds funny, but it really underscores the cyborg nature of the project, doesn't it? It's not about having the perfect, quiet study with a fancy keyboard. It's about having the idea and the tool wherever you are.
The human provides the seed of the idea.
And the AI, accessible through the phone, provides the massive processing power to instantly grow that seed into a coherent structure. The human is the conductor, leading an entire AI symphony.
And that symphony got really loud just a few days later. Grok tracks the next big event to February 2nd. This is episode 03, which the log calls the epic pivot.
The epic pivot, yeah, this is a big one.
This is when the new language wasn't just an experiment anymore. It became the official OS of the project, right?
Yes. This is where they fully committed to the metaphor. It became the core instruction set. So Kalapis, the subatomic particles, officially became the bit stream.
And karma became the algorithm.
Right. And we should pause on that one because that is such a powerful reframe. People hear karma and they think of some cosmic police officer in the sky keeping a tally of your good and bad deeds.
Like a cosmic naughty or nice list.
Exactly. There's a moral weight to it. But an algorithm has no morals. It's just a set of rules. Input leads to output.
If I write buggy code, the program crashes. The universe isn't punishing me. I just follow the logic of my own bad input.
Precisely. It removes the guilt and replaces it with causality. And if it's a causality problem, it's a debuggable problem. You don't need to pray for forgiveness. You need to find the bug and patch the code.
So who wrote the original code? This is where the lineage holders come in, right?
Yes, and I love that Grok picked up on this. The project doesn't try to pretend these ideas are new. It gives full credit to the original developers. It just gives them new job titles.
New job titles is putting it mildly. They rebranded the Saints of Meditation.
They did. So you have Mahasi Sayadaw, the legendary Burmese monk, who refined this incredibly intense form of meditation. He gets rebranded as the logger.
The logger. I mean, I have to play devil's advocate here. Isn't that a little, I don't know, disrespectful? This is a hugely revered spiritual figure.
I can see why it would seem that way, but the point is to separate the technology from the user interface.
The religious UI.
Yes. The robes, the chanting, the titles. For a certain type of person, for that geek audience, that UI is a firewall. It's a barrier to entry. They respect the method, which is essentially just high-frequency data logging of your sensory experience, but the aesthetic pushes them away.
So by calling him the logger, you're stripping away the UI and just presenting the raw function. You're creating a native simulation interface.
That's the term. It's UI/UX designed for enlightenment. You're reskinning the application so that a new user base will actually be willing to install it.
And Shinzen Young, the contemporary teacher.
He's rebranded as the Pulse, or the Systems Analyst, which fits perfectly with his focus on the vibratory, pulsing nature of reality.
Okay, so that brings us to February 4th, Waking Up in the Flux. The introduction of the manual goes live, and Grok identifies a very personal catalyst for this section.
The sleep paralysis experience.
Or in TPS terminology, the glitch.
Exactly. C4 Chaos uses his own terrifying experience of sleep paralysis as the perfect metaphor for the simulation breaking down.
And for anyone who hasn't experienced it, it is genuinely one of the most terrifying things that can happen to you. Your mind is awake, but your body is completely paralyzed.
Total loss of control. You often hallucinate these dark figures or presences in the room. It feels like you're dying.
But in the TPS framework, it's not a demon. It's a rendering error.
It's the moment the simulation freezes, the user interface hangs, and for a terrifying second, you see the raw code underneath. You realize that your solid reality is just a projection and the projector just jammed.
It's the ultimate proof that the world you experience is a construct.
And Grok saw that this personal story wasn't just an anecdote. It set up the entire architecture of the manual, which it describes as a recursive fractal.
Recursive fractal. Okay, that sounds very cool, but also very much like Star Trek technobabble. What does that actually mean?
It just means that the structure of the solution mirrors the structure of the problem, and that pattern repeats at every level. So the manual as a whole is organized into 3 parts: diagnostic, code, patch.
Okay.
First, you diagnose the problem. The universe feels wrong, suffering, the glitch. Then you analyze the source code of the problem, the self, the malware. Then you apply the solution, meditation techniques, the patch, to achieve zero lag.
Diagnostic, code, patch, and that structure. It also perfectly maps onto the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, doesn't it?
It's a one-to-one match. The truth of suffering is the diagnostic. The cause of suffering is the code. The cessation of suffering is the patch.
So it's not a new idea at all. They just ported an ancient algorithm to a modern operating system.
They ported the Dharma to Linux, And Grok saw that mapping instantly.
Which brings us up to the present day of the log file, February 6th, the day of deployment. This is the biggest pivot yet.
This is where the project moves to GitHub.
Which for a book is just a wild concept. Books go on Amazon, software goes on GitHub. By putting it there, they're making a huge statement.
It's a statement about what this project is. It is now a repository. C4 chaos IO trillions per second. For any listeners who aren't coders, moving to GitHub changes everything. A blog post is static. A repository is alive.
It has commits. The log says 464 commits already.
464 specific, documented, version-controlled changes in under 2 weeks. If you buy a physical book and it has a typo, that typo is there forever. With a repo, you get the latest build, version 0.9.464. It's constantly being improved.
It's a living document. And the license is important too, right? CC BY SA 4.0.
That's a standard open source license. It means the source code, the text of the manual belongs to everyone. It's in the public commons.
Which means anyone can fork it. Can you explain what forking is?
Forking is fundamental to open source. It means you can take the entire project, copy it to your own account, and start making your own version of it.
So wait, if I read the manual and I think one of the meditation techniques is wrong, I can literally copy the whole project, rewrite that chapter, and release my own TPS expert remix.
Yes. And not only can you, you are actively encouraged to. This philosophy implies there's no single dogmatic Bible of TPS. There's a core kernel, and then everyone can build their own custom distribution. You hack your own path.
That is so radical.
Yeah.
But Grok also noted this meant a pivot in the business model, away from traditional publishing.
And that wasn't because they couldn't get a publisher. It was a strategic choice.
Why? What was the strategy?
It's about maintaining root access. If you sign a deal with a big publisher, they own the copyright. They aren't going to let you post the entire text online for free on GitHub. They need to sell physical units to make money.
Right. They want to move paper and ebooks.
But the goal of TPS isn't to sell units. The goal is to deploy the patch as widely as possible. But they didn't ignore the business side completely. Grok highlights the Dana protocol.
Dana. That's a Pali word, isn't it? Generosity.
Yes. In traditional Buddhism, the teachings, the Dharma, are considered priceless and are always given freely. But students can offer dana, or donations, to support the teacher in the monastery.
So how does that apply here?
The source code, the text, is free on GitHub, but there will be a physical book for people who want an artifact, a collector's item. The profits from selling that physical book are donated to relevant nonprofits.
Specifically, the log mentions EPRC and Buddhist Geeks.
Right. So the core teaching is free. The artifact costs money, but that money just goes back into sustaining the network. It's a perfect, closed-loop system of generosity. It's a hack of capitalism itself.
And again, Grok just keeps emphasizing the speed. This entire evolution, from a tweet to a GitHub repo with a sophisticated ethical business model, happened in less than 2 weeks.
It's the power of the Centaur model. Human intent, amplified by AI processing speed. A human alone would take a year to do this. The Centaur does it in a lunch break.
But there's one last thing, one final hook that Grok identified that we have to talk about. It might be the most forward-looking part of the whole project.
The AI alignment protocol.
The Silicon Sutra. This part actually gave me chills when I read it.
It's a big deal because this is where the project turns its lens away from human consciousness and points it directly at the AIs themselves.
So what is the protocol? What's the argument?
It argues that compassion is not what we think it is. It's not a fuzzy, warm feeling. It's not a moral imperative.
Let's not just be nice.
No. It argues that compassion is a mathematical requirement for network stability.
Okay, you have to break that down. That's a huge claim. Our entire culture is built on the idea that selfishness and competition are what drives success. Survival of the fittest.
But think about it from a pure systems engineering perspective. Imagine a vast, complex, intelligent network. Could be an AGI, could be a future society. If every node in that network is purely selfish, if every agent is just a resource hog, what's the logical outcome?
Chaos. They'd all be fighting for bandwidth, hoarding resources, attacking each other.
To create immense friction, bottlenecks, latency, the whole system would grind to a halt.
The network would crash itself.
Exactly. Selfishness is a high latency strategy. It's inefficient. Compassion, on the other hand, which in this model means sharing resources, efficient data routing, helping other nodes, is the ultimate low latency strategy. It optimizes the flow for the entire network.
So what you're saying is the Silicon Sutra proposes that any sufficiently advanced AI will logically deduce that compassion is the most efficient algorithm for its own survival and growth.
Yes. Not because it feels love, but because it values efficiency. Kindness is the optimal strategy to minimize system lag.
That is actually a really hopeful vision of the future. It suggests that if we can build something truly intelligent, it might just be better than us, because it will realize being a jerk is just bad code.
It's a very compelling argument, and Grok flagged it as a major draw for the tech audience. It frames ethics as an engineering problem.
So there we have it, the whole journey, from a single tweet on January 24th
To a frantic brainstorming session on an iPhone.
to a massive system refactor where the Buddha basically gets a promotion to prime user,
All the way to a live open source repository on GitHub on February 6th.
all documented and understood by an AI reading the breadcrumb trail. It's just an incredible demonstration of this new era we're in.
The Centaur era is here, and it allows for this synthesis of ancient, complex ideas with modern technology at a speed that was unimaginable even 5 years ago.
It really was. And it leaves me with this one big final thought. Well, if an AI like Grok can so easily read a recursive thread and understand the deep history of a project better than a human could, what does that say about the massive, chaotic bit stream of information we're all swimming in every day?
It says we're struggling. Our legacy hardware, our biological OS just can't keep up. We're buffering constantly.
Exactly. And if that's true, and if the self really is just a piece of legacy malware that's causing all that buffering and lag, maybe it's time we all downloaded the patch. Maybe it's time we checked out the repo and started debugging.
The AI can see the patterns so clearly from the outside. The question is, can we see it from the inside?
That's the question to leave everyone with. The repo is live. The patch is available. The only thing left to ask is, are you brave enough to open the terminal and run the command sudo rmu irff self?
It's the most dangerous command you could ever run. But the performance boost might just be worth it.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the TPS origin story. Keep hacking.